Hello, everyone. I think we are live. It's live at Saturday night. Welcome to Saturday Night Live. We're going to be talking a little bit about banks bleeding, Murdaugh musings, and religion and rulers, as well
Okay,
as
Clay.
the rousing. Ellen,
Okay, we got it. It's been almost a year. We have to get the pronunciation of Murdaugh correct. I know that you like the kingdom, and Murtaugh is a character in that show, but it's Murdaugh apparently.
Murdoch.
So yeah, yes,
All
sir.
right. So, do we need to show Murdaugh how to pronounce his name?
Murdoch. I just know it's not Murtaugh. I want to say hey to Catherine Frazier, to KP, to Sky Ricky. Good to see everyone. Thank
Hello,
you.
everyone. Good to see the gang back together again.
Mhm.
Hat was kind of was thrown a little off. Got new earpieces and was trying to get them connected. Weren't sure they were working or not, but I believe they are. So, good Lord willing, we'll continue on that course.
Sounds good to me. I hope you. And Melissa. Hi, honey. I see you on there. Good to see you as well. Yes, Catherine. It's phonetically Murdaugh, but pronounced as Clay should know because he's Scottish, as am I, Murdoch.
Well,
But
see, I
it's
thought
not.
he was
It's not.
Irish, so I wasn't going to extend him the same courtesy.
Well, it's definitely not Murtaugh. I guarantee you that one.
Murdaugh. All right, we'll go with Murdoch.
Thank you.
Just to keep the E train happy.
Thank you.
It's still fried.
That helps. It's Freed. It's Sam Bankman Freed. He does this shit just to irritate me because I am like funny about my pronunciations of things. I like them to be correct.
She will always be correcting everybody.
That's
It's
not
like,
true.
that is very true. So this is my little rebellion. All right, Sky Ricky, way to go, Coco Golf, age 19, wins U.S. Open, $3 million purse.
Had not heard that.
Not a bad weekend.
No.
I was thinking the Open didn't finish till tomorrow, but 19 years old, not bad at all. KP with the small sacrifice, Clay. We all have our burdens, KP. We all have our burdens. He is baiting the A-lister. I'll drink to that.
I really can't argue with that.
I didn't figure you would.
Laughing. Mm-mm.
You had the opportunity.
I'm going to see. There goes one of my earpods. Because I'm kind, I let stuff like that go. Good move. Sorry, lost an earpod.
Did you find it?
Hair is a pain in the butt, and you can't move it with these earpods in, or just continue on.
Too busy watching you scramble around for your earpods.
I know.
That's some of the best entertainment I've seen so far today. I was trying to think. We've got his crazy cat queen popped in yet? No, she still may be
No,
working
but
with her
Zan's
father.
here.
Zan's tired. How are you doing? Good to see you again.
Glad you're here.
Hope all is going well for you. It's been for us kind of a quick week. Obviously, a lot of things have been going on, both in the market and with the with the Murdaugh case.
Yeah,
And
good job.
and then a little bit of a controversy over separation of church and state. That was actually a topic of significant discussion on one of the channels that Ellen was following, and kind of got a request to delve into that a little bit. I do love history and colonial, Revolutionary War, love philosophy, and matters of religion. So it's kind of an interesting area for me. So we may delve into that a little bit as well.
Where are we going to start? Because we got lots of crazy
We
things
got
going
lots to
on.
cover. Let's just start real quick with looking at the goings on in the market. Housing's always a big issue. Delinquency rates, found out this week, rose to 7.5%, the highest on record. They are also
We're talking like even 2007, 2008, 2009.
Yes.
Whoa. Okay.
And are occurring when unemployment is low, supposedly. Now, I have talked some previously about my lack of confidence in the BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the BEA, Bureau of Economic Affairs, the two data publishing agencies, economic data publishing agencies of the U.S. government. So, I can wax poetic about criticizing the numbers, but bottom line is, let's just say that unemployment is low, that we believe U3. Well, what happens when the unemployment rate increases? That's when delinquencies should start rising. Could be interesting. Yeah. Also I say, I have some issue with the U3, which is the most popular unemployment index. If we were using the same method used in 1994, which honestly wasn't all that long ago, unemployment would be over 20% right now. A far cry from the, 3.8 that's currently reported. There are ways to manipulate the numbers. So whichever one you trust. I saw where BLS basically admitted they had undercounted by 6 to 8 million the unemployed, which would make the current U3 rate closer to about 7%. So, take your pick. Which survey, which sample, which method do you want to use? Main point is unemployment is likely to get worse. And what happens to delinquencies and bankruptcies then? So for those who want to be a home buyer, take some comfort. Prices have started to come down a little bit, though the Wall Street Journal, the well-known, much-loved Wall Street Journal, just put up an article a couple of days ago that prices may have bottomed, that the bottom of the housing prices decline may have passed. And then there was this article, Real Estate Doom Loop. Now, what's a doom loop? Basically, a doom loop is bankruptcies and defaults start hitting banks, so they quit making loans, which obviously causes more economic trouble, more failures, because people can't get liquidity. They can't refinance their loans, corporate, personal, real estate. And so you have more failures, which hurts the banks even more, which it ends up being a very vicious cycle. And that's how you get an economic crisis. So there's some fascinating things going on in banking and housing. The two are kinfolk cousins, closely related, obviously, due to the amount of loans. I mean, that's what banks do with your deposits, right? They make loans. So, doing some quick math, people talk about how expensive houses are now. Well, it would take nearly a 30 or 35% decline in housing prices. It would take a 4% reduction in mortgage rates, or up to a 60, 65% in income, average income, median income, to bring affordability back to its 25-year average. If you want to know how much of a bubble we're in, we're at a 4-decade high, which, particularly looking at 2004, 2005, 2006, is saying something. It's really hard to imagine how impressive that is.
It's hard to imagine that it can get worse than 2007, 2008.
Well, not saying it's getting worse, saying some things are already worse. So it's kind of like a red flag. Obviously, the entire real estate market, the single family home real estate market hasn't collapsed like it did in 08. Obviously, the banks aren't failing like it did in 08. The market is not crashing like it did in 08. So, but some things, there's some flags popping up.
They're pre-indicators, though.
Very possibly, yes. I am not optimistic about the future. Obviously, my crystal ball is not perfect, not better than necessarily anybody else's, but I follow trends, and almost all of the trends are bad. Take that for whatever it's worth, but that's why I say be cautious. That's why I tell people that it's very possible that things could get worse soon.
We got a question here. Hey, Kate, how are you?
Kate Lewis. Hello, what's the percentage rate in the U.S. for a mortgage? I'm in Australia. In U.S. dollars right now, it's about 7.2 to 7.5%.
What is it in Australia? I'm curious. And thank you for being here from Australia. That's awesome. We appreciate you staying up or waking up, or I'm not, how far? I don't do the hours in my head real well, but
That's
thank
okay.
you.
It's
I know even like most car loans are like at 10%. I think that's what Crazy Cat Queen was saying a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Which is not good.
And not only are the rates higher, but banks are increasing credit standards. They are getting to the point where they want to make fewer loans, even though they're charging more for them. Because remember, banks don't keep most of the loans. They just cycle them. But they're increasing the credit standards because there's not the demand in the market. So mortgage applications are way down. Here is.
I'm sorry, sweetheart.
Here is this. Oh, sorry. Kate Lewis, minus 6.3. Thank you. Suffering with a badly fractured wrist.
I am sorry. That does not sound like fun.
Yeah, I hope his eye looks worse than your wrist.
Who?
His eye.
Who is his eye? Am I missing something?
Yeah, it's kind of an old joke. When you see a woman with a hurt hand, she got it from punching a guy.
Gotcha.
So I hope he looks worse than you do.
Okay. Thank you. Sometimes you got to explain your jokes.
Yeah, sorry. When I would come home and had a fight in school, I might be scuffed up or, bruised or whatever. And all Dad would say is, I hope he looks worse.
Hope the other guy looks worse.
Yep.
I always told my kids, I said, look, if you're about to get into a fight, you better hit, and you better hit harder than they're going to hit you. Because I'd rather them be in the hospital than you, because you're my babies. Because that's the thing. Maybe not the best motherly advice, but it's a thing.
I don't know. Certainly wouldn't go over well today. I'll put it that way.
No.
Kate Lewis, I think some have 5%. Here in the U.S., some have 2.5%. I have a 2.5% mortgage, which is stupid low. I will freely admit that. It's stupid low. When I saw it, I thought, I can't turn that down.
I remember I came up to you and I was like, hey, Clay, like to refinance. And you were like, mine's already at like 3.25 or 3.75. And he's like, no. Then he got this rate and he was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to do it. I was like, yeah, why not?
Yeah,
hey, Brentwood.
Brentwood, good to see you. And yes, Kate, despite my bad sense of humor, do hope you get to feeling better and your wrist gets to feeling better soon. I know that's uncomfortable, painful. So here's a chart of mortgage applications that goes back to basically 1988, 1989. And you can tell here on the right-hand side that we are at a level that haven't seen since 1995. And that includes the subprime crisis years and after the subprime crisis.
So I can't see the chart because you have the I know you can't see my arrow, but the thing in the bottom. So I'm assuming this is like 2006 at the very top.
See,
because that part of the screen, no, it's just the icons in the bottom
okay,
that are blocking the dates.
this is 94, 95 right in here.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we are now. This little dotted
Right.
line shows the level we are now and shows that we haven't been at this level since 1995.
And where's the high? Because that, okay, there we go. It's between about 2005. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha.
2006. Does that make better sense?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if I'm doing something and y'all can't see it, doesn't make sense, let me know. I suck at mind reading. Okay. So
He really does. I promise
Ellen
you.
can vouch for me.
Mm-hmm.
All of my other exes can vouch for me too. So y'all don't hesitate to let me know or ask questions if I say something that doesn't communicate.
All of my other exes. Yeah, well. Sorry.
Yeah, I lost my thought on that one.
Oh, you're killing me. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Okay. Brentwood, we are not usually shy. Well, please don't be.
Don't. Chunk,
That must be Chunk.
What is wrong?
We can hear him whining out here.
Oh, God, he found his ball. Hang on.
All right. One other interesting thing going on is obviously China. Don't really know where to start with China. China historically has been, and Japan
Sorry.
have been two of the biggest.
At least for making Kate laugh. Tallulah, no.
She gets mad when Chunk has the ball. She wants that ball. She never used to care about ball, but now that Chunk has a ball, she wants the ball.
And we're trying.
Gets mad.
We realized we kind of made an error. We were like giving her so much attention for getting the ball that now she's obsessed when he has it, that she has to have it now. And so we're now, instead of going, oh my God, good girl, Tallulah. Oh my God, you're so good. You're so good. Now we're just like, good girl. Give me the ball. I'll throw it again.
Welcome to a night at the Moffat house. All right, China and Japan.
I might have to mute.
Okay. China and Japan. The interesting thing is that they're two of the biggest treasury buyers that we've had the past 20 years. Well, past is not prologue, with both the yen and the yuan down significantly as investors prefer higher rate U.S. securities. I mean, the interest rate in China right now is somewhere around 3.5%. The Japanese rate is negative 0.1%. What's a negative interest rate? Well, if I lend somebody money at 5%, they will pay me 5% interest, positive interest rate. So a negative interest rate is not only do I give them my money, do I loan them my money, but I also pay them interest.
How is that even possible?
You know, well, it's possible because Japan hasn't had inflation. They've had
I'm still not going to pay someone to borrow my money. That is just
I agree.
excuse me, ass words.
I agree. But Japan is kind of a different society. Japan raises most of its money domestically. And historically, the Japanese aren't really favorably inclined toward outsiders. Just traditionally, it's their culture. And so they will lend their money to the Japanese government at very low rates. In this case, negative rates. Europe had negative rates for years.
Is that
So
part of their government system? I mean, is it? I don't know what kind of government they have there. I'm sure you know.
the, it's a form of a democracy, parliamentary democracy.
Okay, so I'm going to pay the government to borrow my money.
Yes.
No, sorry.
I can't argue that. Not even going to try, but that's what it is. So we'll just accept that for what it is.
I mean, I would want a stake in what they're spending it on, where the money's going, especially if I'm paying them to borrow it.
I mean, I would want a return on my money. I want my money to grow, particularly in a global society where I can take my money and put it elsewhere in the world and earn a positive return.
But I'm
Some
saying, like,
people
go ahead.
some people prefer, if they invest in other currencies, other money, they've got currency risk.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got, possibly stock market risk, interest rate risk, whatever. In Japan, they don't feel like they have any risk. So they're willing to basically accept a zero return or a very low return for the security and safety of their money with no inflation.
But they're paying them. That's not security and safety. That's a negative draw.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not arguing.
Okay. Well, the other thing
It
I was
just
going to say
is.
is, oh gosh, okay. I did find an extra ball that I'd hidden away. So at least
We
they can
have
each have one.
temporary peace.
We do. If the U.S. government was borrowing my money, if I had tons of money, like say I'm Elon Musk, and I, give them $2 billion to borrow, and I'm paying them interest on it, I want to at least say where it's going to go or where it's not going to go.
Well, you don't get to do that in buying government securities, but sometimes, for example, if I was concerned that the market was going to drop severely, if I'm a portfolio manager, a hedge fund manager, I'm managing $2 billion, $20 billion. That is too big of a portfolio for me to sell everything, take the money and bury it in a coffee can. I have to put it somewhere. And so I may be willing to put it in sometimes the treasury bills, T-bills, the short-term treasuries have gone negative. I may be willing to take a definite small loss for a short period of time rather than take the risk of a very big loss over a short period of time. So as a portfolio manager, sometimes you are in a position where you may have to take a negative return. For people not as concerned about the security or principal value of their money, that may not be a good trade-off to them.
So losing 1% is better than losing 20% in a risky market.
Basically, yes.
Okay.
That's the idea. Taking a known small loss better than an uncertain large loss. And that may happen at times. I've seen the market move in that direction, even in the U.S. Kate Lewis, interesting. Isn't housing also very expensive in Japan? Most real estate and housing is very expensive in Japan.
Especially in the big cities.
Yeah. Yeah. It is crazy. I'm not intimately familiar with the current prices or financing, so I can't really comment on that. I could do a little research on it and find it. But I do know that it is, and it has been terribly expensive, particularly in the cities, Tokyo, Hiroshima, the bigger cities. Back to China and Japan, big buyers of the treasuries. Well, China's economy is going to hell in a handbasket. Japan, so you have people selling the yen and the yuan which caused them to drop in relative value, and buying dollars, which has strengthened the dollar. Now, this has repercussions on those two countries domestically. They need to raise cash, particularly China. So they have a rather large stockpile, or have acquired a large stockpile of U.S. treasuries.
Sorry.
Chunk has both balls. He tends to do that. So they're selling these treasuries to try to lower the value of the dollar versus the yen. Since they're reducing their treasury portfolios, the problem is, since they're reducing their treasury portfolios, they aren't going to be buyers of treasuries. And we're entering a phase where the U.S. government is borrowing more and more. We're going to be borrowing $90 billion a month. I mean, it's getting ridiculous. So who's going to buy this? The idea is that there's, you have fewer buyers without China and Japan. So when demand drops, supply increases. Well, we're going to have to be paying higher interest rates. So those people expecting that interest rates are going to drop significantly over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, are probably going to be sorely disappointed. Supply and demand is still a law. There are some trade-offs. If the economy in China is crashing, Japan's isn't crashing, but it isn't growing either. Both are highly dependent on imports for energy and food. So as particularly China's economy slows down, they're going to be buying less. They're going to be importing less energy, oil, etc. So that may mute the demands and the increases in oil prices. So there's kind of trade-offs.
Forgive me. I was dealing with dogs. Now they're in the hallway outside my room, and they have free roam of the rest of the upstairs. But didn't China decide to not import Japanese seafood because of the nuclear dump? Yeah.
So
how's that going to affect?
They'll just import more from other Pacific Rim countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, whatever. Try to increase their own harvesting.
Because that was Japan. I'm talking about Japan, though. That was Japan's biggest export to China.
Exporter, yeah.
Yeah.
There's some other things. China real estate is just absolutely blowing up. Their largest real estate developer, Evergrande, filed for bankruptcy a couple of weeks ago. The second largest one in China is known as Country Garden, and it, I mean, barely by the skin of its teeth, made its bond payments this past week, avoiding default.
Wow.
But it's likely not far behind. Its bonds are trading at 8 cents on the dollar. So if you...
Sorry.
Ellen's even shocked at that.
That was a tough one to swallow.
Yeah, that is below junk bond status. That's nearly bankrupt, nearly at default. They have
like the penny stocks.
Yeah, the largest investment firm, Zongrong, has roughly $82 billion under management, just defaulted on payments to investors. It has about 10% in real estate.
I wish I knew how to pronounce that. I'd probably correct you.
My Chinese is immaculate. FDI, foreign direct investment. So foreign investment in China, foreign investment in equity markets is non-existent, dropped to virtually zero. A lot of the manufacturing now is moving to India, Indonesia, Vietnam, which increases those countries' dependence on trade with its largest partner, the US, and away from China. So there's really hugely significant dynamics going on in Southeast Asia right now. Huge trend shifts. There's a lot of talk about China's interest in Taiwan. Well, with their economy crashing, it's a legitimate concern. Can they afford a protracted war? If
That's
they
just
are
my humble opinion.
losing, yeah, if they're losing big business, manufacturing, technology to their neighbors, and those neighbors are strengthening their relationships militarily and economically with the U.S. We just this week asked India, to consider their response should China move on Taiwan. What role would they be willing to take? What role would they take in defending, the area?
What'd they say?
They're considering it. They are at least willing, I think, to give us access to their bases, fly, planes over to resupply, that kind of thing.
Without getting in their airspace and being flagged as a deterrent or
Right,
yeah.
right. And they may be willing to defend part of the, the Indian Ocean and area from incursions. Haven't committed to direct action yet, but that hasn't been ruled out. So the thing that should be worrisome to the Chinese is that there is a coalescing of entities that surrounds them against them, because they are not an island.
No, they are not. But I do have a question and some thoughts, I guess.
Okay.
We made a deal a long time ago with Russia that we would not get 1 inch closer to their border as far as NATO goes. Correct?
Right.
We have pushed that to the limits. Some people want us to defend Ukraine. I feel like in our agreement, we promised that we would stay out of it, that we would back off, that we would not do the things just to keep peace with Russia. One, what good does it do us to encroach on the Ukraine when that's just going to push Russia closer to China, which is a bad idea? I'm not sure how Russia's finances are doing now, but obviously China is not doing that well. And what does that mean? And why should we care?
Okay. What is the specific question?
I thought I had a lot of them.
You did. I'm not sure where to begin.
Okay, hang on.
All right, Quad E, while you're thinking about that, isn't
Yep.
China increasing their waters with artificial islands? Here is a map of southeastern China, and it kind of shows the areas where they are building some of those islands. And of course, this is Taiwan. So this is the area that they are building. The upper circle is where they have some shallow waters and reefs. They are expanding those and building runways and small bases, that kind of thing, to try to influence and claim more ownership of the East China Sea. The advantage to them in that is that the East China Sea is a mineral-rich area, has a lot of oil, for example. Obviously, they're a huge oil importer. Mm-hmm. So if they can claim that oil, then they can drill it and sell it, keep what they want. So it also enables them to extend their defensive border. So that's a big issue.
Okay, so let's start with, I guess, the first question. Why should we support Ukraine or not support Ukraine?
That is a long and complex process. We promised Russia years ago.
Was Gorbachev, or I'm trying to figure out which president this was.
It would be under Gorbachev when Russia was first.
That's what I
say
thought, but I wasn't
first when the Soviet Union broke
sure.
up. We promised them we would not extend NATO to their borders. Well, we've added Poland, and there was some talk of Ukraine coming in. Secondly, so we have, and it's just history, we have broken promises to Russia. Secondly, the western part of Ukraine is Russian speaking, or was largely Russian speaking, and the Ukrainians don't like the Russians. Russians don't like the Ukrainians. People in the Donbass and Crimea region were actually subject to torture by a group called the Azov Brigade. I can't even say it.
Brigade.
I can see the word. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
This group was a largely Nazi group, and they conducted, mass murders, acts of terrorism. They would use different cities in Donbass for bombing practice or to practice their artillery firing. So just treated the people relatively brutally. And so there's a lot of incentives and beefs over that area. The area doesn't want to be a part of Ukraine. And so, Russia moved in to protect some of its citizens, or invaded Ukraine to protect some of its fellow people. Now, obviously, Putin is pretty corrupt. His net worth is estimated at over $200 billion. And he has visions of restoring, supposedly, the Soviet Union or Russia's glory in kind of a pseudo-religious, existentialist, manifest destiny sort of way. I'm trying to be brief. So there's a lot of people dying, Russians and Ukrainians. The Ukrainian citizens, the people in the Donbass and the Crimea, who are poor and destitute anyway, will tell you they get treated better under Russia than they do Ukraine. But they're the ones having their houses and kids and families blown up. And Russia isn't going to surrender. Ukraine doesn't have enough power to push them out. I don't know if Russia has enough, logistics and offensive capability to, roll over all of Ukraine, particularly with, Western backing. So there's kind of a stalemate. And I know Musk and some others have proposed just a ceasefire, let Russia keep the areas that want to be under Russia, and, let's just call a halt to it, instead of just having a long and protracted war.
Just do what we say we're going to do.
Well, that's hard to do when we change political parties and administrations every 4 years. It just, priorities change. That's just a practical reality of dealing with the U.S. We aren't the best ally. We oftentimes leave a mess, just like when we left Afghanistan. We have people who trusted us and were loyal to us and helped us, and interpreters. We left them all behind. Don't get me started on that. Crazy Cat Queen. I know this happens a lot, but wouldn't it be amazing if all the self-proclaimed greatest nation of the USA at least honored their promises? I have an old saying. You can ask Ellen and say, I don't make promises and I don't break any. It takes a lot for me to make a promise to somebody. And if I promise somebody something, I'll keep it. I would like to see the U.S. a whole lot more careful in the promises it makes, realizing that the next administration may have a different view. And if we're going to promise something, we need to make it clear and put it in writing. Not be afraid to stand by it. Get Congress to vote on it. Just like we, make a treaty out of it. But, in all reality, and I think everybody would pretty much agree, our politics are pretty whimsical. The perspectives and priorities change rapidly. And it's hard for a good part of the other world, particularly the Occidental world that has such a long-term view of everything, to trust somebody with such a short-term view who, can see much further than the nose on their face. But that's the world we live in. Practical reality. We've been breaking promises since day one, so I suppose that's really our legacy.
And it shouldn't be.
Well, like it or not, that's just a practical reality. I don't know what else to say on that.
I feel like, and this is just me being me, but if we make a promise as a nation, that promise needs to be kept. I don't care who is in office. I don't care who the president is. We made a pact and a promise, and we should keep it.
Well, see, the key is making a promise as a nation. If one president says something, does the next president have to honor it? Or do we need to actually put it in writing, have Congress vote on it, and make it a treaty?
I mean, it should be just in the sake of world peace. Let's just, I mean, that's...
but you have hundreds or thousands of representatives of the U.S. government in all these different regions and areas speaking, quote unquote, on behalf of the president. And they may imply or make promises all the time. And it's not recorded.
But when they make it like in NATO, a NATO promise, we will not do this. To me, that's an entirely different animal.
I don't argue that. That was even a written agreement. It wasn't. Mm-hmm. It wasn't officially declared as a treaty, voted on and approved by Congress, but
it was a NATO.
Yeah, it was clear.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy Cat Queen. We essentially destroyed Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, and the culture for our own selfish reasons.
Can I do this real quick? Yes. We had no idea, or at least most of the I don't know if military, but at least the president and most of the United States population had no idea that there was a difference between Sunnis and Shiites when we went into Iraq. Or was it Iran? Sorry. But there it is. You don't go into a culture and decide that you know what's best for that culture, because they don't have the same values and beliefs that we do. And we need to respect their values and their beliefs and what they need. And it's not up to us to decide that democracy should be everywhere. That's just not, it's kind of like, I think I heard Candace Owens say one time that going to China and people were so poor, they had no idea what it was like to, one, have free choice of anything, right? And they had no idea what it was like to have money. That is so foreign to them, right? And that's the same with the Sunnis and Shiites. We should not have been there doing what we did.
Yeah, I remember hearing Jackie Chan, the Hollywood actor, the martial arts actor, say that now he is generally a supporter of the communist government in China. But he said once, and I wondered about that, and he said once that not every nation, not every culture is a good fit for democracy. And it hit me. The founding fathers were clear that the ability to understand and appreciate the infinite value of humans, the inherent rights endowed by their creator, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, that in order to understand and appreciate property rights, that you had to have a well-educated society. And back, in the late 1700s, early 1800s, this country was extremely literate. Probably 1 in 1,000 persons couldn't read or write at what we would now consider to be a high school or college level. People were reading works by Hume, Locke, Montesquieu, number of other writers. They would sit and talk about deep philosophical or political issues on the street corners for hours. They were in many ways far more educated than we are. Our education is much broader, but much shallower. So you don't get, in Afghanistan, trying to take tribes that have been at war with each other, most who can't read or write, have no education, and convince them or force on them a democratic republic. It's just not going to work. It takes hundreds of years to change those kind of cultures. And to me, that's the big problem, is our insistence on nation building. If we find enemies in remote areas or faraway places, okay, go destroy them. Pound the hell out of them. Pound the rubble. But we can't focus and spend trillions of dollars trying to convert that country to our way of life or our values. It just doesn't work. Catherine, a lot of promises are diplomatic and expedient. They are bandages, not bridges. Amen.
Oh, no, that one here.
Whoops, not that one. Crazy Cat Queen. I really feel like we need the prime directive from here on out. Star Trek-y, basically hands off other cultures.
I believe that.
Because we have been a failure at improving them. We've caused more harm than good.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Quaddy. Good to see you, by the way, Quaddy. I find most people don't like to read, myself included. So what happened to the book club?
It's coming. I think I actually have a book that Clay has asked me to read. The Power of Pain. Is that it? It's C.S. Lewis.
Yeah. Well, we said we were going to do a poll, and I forgot to put up a poll. So I will make a note and do that.
We could do it now. I don't know how, but
it'll take me a few minutes.
Will you go ahead?
Let's see.
There's another one.
The Good Earth.
Do it now. Do it now. Y'all help me. The one that where the girl trekked the Pacific Coast Trail. Help me. What's it called?
I kind of know what you're talking about, but I don't remember it.
Shoot. Somebody knows. To check out, we'll watch tomorrow. All right, Sky Ricky. You're Wild. Wild's a good one. Wild. Yep. Chat knows everything.
All right, let's see.
And hang on.
I'm going to mute myself for a minute while I put this poll up.
Well, damn it.
Can't talk and think at the same time.
Yes, you can. I keep finding stuff that I need to throw away. All right. The only books I have up here are like Well, I've got 4 Bibles up here, and then Exodus and Hebrews and the Inquiry into Life, which is a biology book from school. So that's not interesting. I'm trying to think of something else. And no, we're not, y'all. We're not going to do Ayn Rand for the first book. That's just not a thing. I love y'all to pieces, but I am not reading that much at one time. It's not going to happen. I highly recommend C.S. Lewis. There's another book by I know you can hear me, Clay, still, right? Yes? Okay. The first book you have me read by C.S. Lewis is also a very good one. Shite. Do y'all have any suggestions that y'all want to read? Pop them up so Clay can put them in the poll. Anyone? Better do it quick. Yeah. Yeah, Crazy Cat Queen. It was, yeah. It got cray-cray.
All right.
Oh, you're back.
I'm back. Put up a brief poll. It better work. The poll only let me put up 4 choices.
Okay, Rapture Red is another one that's been suggested. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You better start writing these down. Rapture Red. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. All right. Poll.
All right. Poll is up.
You put Atlas, you jackhole. And none of the ones that I suggest, you
It only gave me 4 slots.
You could have at least chosen one that I suggested.
I'd already put it up by the time you were suggesting.
You liar, pants on fire.
No, I had a list here from last week. I was actually going down that list.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we'll leave that poll up for a few. Now, let's talk about separation of church and state. I got to admit, when I first, was asked this, I was like, I don't know. But part of the joy of having a YouTube channel is being able to talk about controversial subjects.
Can I say how this kind of started?
Sure.
I was on Lawyer, Peter Tragos. And he was saying, just sort of reading through the Murdaugh notes and just kind of giving his take. And this was just like a random thing that he happened to say. And he was just like, yes, they prayed every morning. Well, the jury, before they went into court. Well, people got livid and crazy about it. That separation of church and state. You can't do that. You cannot pray in the courthouse. You can't. I mean, it was nutty. And I think Catherine may have been on the chat. I'm not sure who else, but I was just like, y'all, calm down. If people want to pray, they can pray. And I said, Clay, will you please say something about this? Because there you go. Go for it.
Fair enough. Couple things real quick. Sky Ricky headed out. May have already lost. Check out. We'll watch tomorrow night. Thank you for joining us, Sky. We appreciate it very much.
Hang on. Actually, yeah, I'm single. I'm an ex.
So, anybody want to start bidding?
Oh, really?
We'll start the bidding at. Just kidding.
Okay, KP can't see the poll. I don't know why you can't see it. It's on my phone.
It should be at the top of the chat and should be like a little check down box or something. So,
Okay,
but
Capes is
it's on
hilarious.
YouTube.
Yeah. It's on, yeah, I'm looking at it. I haven't voted yet because I don't see
I think I
I know
found my first
huh?
user I'm going to have to ban.
Who?
I did a master's in English literature, so I read anything except Rand. She's awful.
We love Catherine. You stop it. Yeah, Catherine was there. I thought I saw her there.
I don't know if you saw the last time when we were talking about the books, I mentioned Rand was a little bit excessively wordy. And in the book Atlas Shrugged, John Galt's speech is 90 pages long or 60 something pages long. It's
Okay, good. KP came
she
back.
had a
She
way
did
with
good.
words. So
Yeah.
she is kind of awful, but to me, there's such value in the story.
You know what I find interesting?
What?
Is that someone's asking if I'm available and they haven't asked if you are. I'm just saying. Had to throw that out there.
That's okay. Guys should be the one doing the asking. I'm a little
Yes,
old
they
school in that
should.
regard.
All right, let's see. They did mistake the meaning of that separation. And Catherine, she was there. Yep. I thought I remembered your name being there.
Well, let's talk about it a little bit. Like I say, I love history, love philosophy. And when I think about the Constitution, the Declaration, the organic founding documents, I'm always reminded of Jefferson's quote about the convention, the Great Convention. He said, "It really is an assembly of the demigods," in a letter to John Adams. The meeting was where the Constitution was hammered out. And it was a contentious meeting, a frustrating meeting, because they had been dealing with a weak government established under the Articles of Confederation. You had different groups. Hamilton, for example, wanted a strong, federal government, centralized government. Others, such as Sherman, were very passionate, determined about states' rights. There were a lot of contentious issues. Slavery. Many in the northern states wanted slavery abolished. There were some who actually opposed slavery, but who still owned slaves for economic reasons. Some defended it as a historical tradition from around the world. Slaves were all over the world, had been for thousands of years. So the convention dragged on with little or no progress. Washington wrote that he didn't think the convention would even agree on a new plan of government. That was at the point when then 81-year-old Ben Franklin stood up and gave his famous speech. How many of y'all know his famous speech or are familiar with his famous speech? Whoops. Where am I? There it is. This is his speech. He starts off talking the small progress we have made after 4 or 5 weeks in close attendance. Talking about the many different views, but the heart and soul of it, and that to me the most interesting phrase is in the middle, near the middle end of the letter. It says, "I have lived, sir, a long time, and the longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see of this truth, that God governs in the affairs of men. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, is it probable that an empire can rise without his aid? We have been assured, sir, in the sacred writings that except the Lord build, they labor in vain that build it. I firmly believe this, and I believe that without his concurring aid, we shall succeed in this political building no better than the builders of Babel. We shall be divided by our own little partial local interest. Now, there are a couple of interesting things about that to me. One, Ben Franklin is often ascribed as a believer of deism, which practical reality is he was a deist in his younger days, but became disenchanted with it. Reading through this speech, this clearly is the view of a person that believes God is intimately involved in the affairs, the daily affairs, the trivial affairs, even a sparrow falling from the sky, in the affairs of men. That is just the antithesis of deism. Now, simply the modern definition of deism doesn't fit their beliefs. It offers no insights or motivations into their beliefs with God. So it offers little meaning to the context about the members writing about the Constitution. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the fathers were extremely well read and studied in the works of Hume, the Scottish philosopher who extended the works of John Locke in elevating reason as a function of the heart, function of the senses.
You mean Locke like logic?
Yeah, elevating logic, but talking about it's not just purely an analytical process, that it emanates from our experiences and our senses, what we see, what we understand, what, even sometimes our feeling. Logic, a pure rationale can be impacted by experience and senses.
And that opens up a whole nother Pandora's box of perception based on past experience and perception based on your past experiences and how you see something, and the whole 360 hologram society that we live in, where 10 people can watch a car wreck and every single one of them will see a different thing.
The extension of that is, Locke and Hume didn't carry it that far. Locke was an empiricist, believed in, empirical solutions. And he, particularly Locke, was instrumental in undermining the concept of the divine right of kings and rulers. That was a notion that had governed civilization, particularly, the European, African, Middle Eastern civilization for centuries.
I guess Prince Harry learned that the hard way.
Is Prince Harry actually royalty? Who's his dad?
That's a whole nother conversation, but yeah. Hang on. You got it. Okay. You're being corrected.
Clay, sorry, but need a correction. Deism is absolutely belief in God, not necessarily religion. Basically, in deism, you can look around nature and life and recognize that God must exist. Yes, but my point is that deists hold that God is not actively involved in the affairs of men, that he has kind of set things up, wound up the watch, and is just letting it run on its own.
So we are experiment and free will. Let's see what the ants do.
Pure and simple free will. And Ben Franklin's contradicted that as far as his personal view, saying God governs in the affairs of men, that not a sparrow falls from the sky without his assent.
I think that's talking about Locke.
No, there's Ben Franklin. It's a quote that I read earlier.
Okay, because we missed a couple. That was Franklin.
Franklin was a member of the Hellfire Club. Yeah, I don't know. I do know that he ended up moving away from deism. I mean, that quote is proof positive. Now, exactly what and how full and what we would describe as orthodox his beliefs today, I can't give good commentary. We don't have precise enough information from his writings or his collections to really know. There's some comments from friends who, knew him his whole life, etc., but nothing really concrete. So I'm not going to presume to speak where history is silent, where the known history is silent.
Crazy Cat Queen. Ah, gotcha. Now she.
Yeah, no. People will talk in academia ad infinitum about the contributors to the American Revolution in terms of, governing, guiding philosophy. Locke,
Wait.
Hume, Montesquieu, Rousseau.
That was such an educational or ad litem. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm a little lost, but that's okay.
The first part of that was that the educators will talk in ad litem, and that was such an educational or
Ad
professor.
infinitum.
Okay.
Ad infinitum, forever.
Ad infinitum. Yeah.
To extremes.
Which is it's such a professor word or phrase.
No. I hate that. I hate when I'm called a professor, right?
Mm-hmm.
No. Actually, I'm very proud of it. It is an honorable profession, oftentimes handled by the dishonest and unhonorable. But anyway.
Fair enough.
One important influence is consistently ignored. Catherine, I saw that.
I'm posting it. Mm-hmm. You do. That's a very good one, Catherine. Thank you. I'm going to have to screenshot that. Go ahead. Continue on.
Kind of lost train of thought there, but thank you. Now,
okay, we got another comment. So there you go.
Crazy Cat Queen. There are actually both thoughts in deism. George Washington was a deist as well as Thomas Jefferson, I believe, and both believe God does intervene. But yes, most think setup then release. I don't think George Washington was actually a deist. I believe he would be closer to what we call an evangelical today. Now,
really?
Jefferson's beliefs.
He was a Freemason.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Washington was very devout in his beliefs. He was well known for his prayers and faithfulness and efforts in adherence to the Word of God. He was very open about his faith, but he wasn't trying to push it on others. He just had a very quiet and very simple faith. But his faith and positions were generally well known. Jefferson, highly unusual guy, relatively unorthodox beliefs. There were passages in the Bible he did not like, so he literally took a pair of scissors and cut them out. And that version has come to be known as the Jeffersonian Bible. I don't see many copies of it floating around, but Jefferson throughout his life was probably the closest to a deist, to a pure and consistent deist. But there's one thing that always gives me pause, and that is, if anybody, how many of y'all have been to the Jefferson Memorial?
In Lincoln and Washington.
Yeah, just Jefferson Memorial. Because if you've been on the northeast portico, there is a quote from Jefferson. And he says, God who gave us life, gave us liberty. Can the liberties of a nation be secure when we have removed a conviction that these liberties are the gift of God? Indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, that his justice cannot sleep forever. Commerce between master and a slave is despotism. Nothing is more certainly written in the book of faith than that these people are to be free. Establish the law for educating the common people. This is the business of the state to effect on a general plan.
Okay, I'm looking at, you asked who had been. I'm looking, I'm not sure. I can't see that tiny. Hi, KP. Crazy Cat Queen has not been. Brentwood Chic has. Melissa has. And Catherine has not. Sorry, you asked. So
Yeah, no, this is kind of somewhat typical of Jefferson's quotes in that there is a content or imprimatur that God is active in our life, but he doesn't come out and say it clearly. God who gave us life gave us liberty. That's not exactly winding up a watch and sitting back. He gave us liberty.
hang on.
Um,
Okay, KP
is that
has.
innate?
KP, the emoji was me raising my hand. I was like, okay.
Yeah. So Jefferson's a hard one to really put in a box. He was a brilliant man, extremely well-studied individual, but he had unique thoughts, theories, and beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, key point for the night. If you don't get anything else I say, understand this. I talked about many write often about the influence of Locke, Montesquieu, Hume.
Thank you for being here, Kate.
Yes, thank you, Kate. Appreciate it. But one important influence is ignored. The one, perhaps the most singularly important influence. The great German historian Leopold von Ranke called him the virtual founder of America. George Bancroft, who was the greatest 19th century historian, referred to him as the father of America. So who is this his mysterious figure that academics today ignore, but that great historians credit more than any other? It would be John Calvin. And most people would flip out if you called today John Calvin the father of America.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to keep in mind, you have to look at what the environment the founding fathers were raised in and what they believed, what they studied, and how they viewed the world. Calvin's views on government and lawful resistance, particularly lawful resistance, were huge influence on the groups that immigrated to this country. The groups were from churches like the Dutch Reformed, Scottish Presbyterians, the French Huguenots, English Puritans. Yet all of these people shared a commonality of principles based largely on the teachings of Calvin. But most history professors today will completely ignore it. Calvin's views that one has the right, not only the right, but the responsibility to oppose evil rule makes the American Revolution make sense after centuries of class rule and the divine right of kings. I mean, even today in England, there are people who believe in the monarchy and royalty. Americans never have, because of the teachings emanating from the Reformation, Martin Luther, John Calvin, in the priesthood of the believer, that each and every individual is equal to the other, that there is no value in class distinctions, that each individual has the right before God to form and shape his own religion, his own beliefs, his own faith,
and
in the way that they
God
see fit.
That you believe in. It's not.
Yes.
That's the thing. It wasn't like you come here and you believe what we believe. Like, you can practice your own religion. You can do whatever you want. This is a free country. You have, the right to bear arms. You have as long as
Yeah, these people listened for decades to powerful sermons on justification by faith alone,
Mhm.
and the menace of clericalism. They were versed in Martin Luther as he described God's servant who had taken his stand on God's word and delivered the churches from ecclesiastical tyranny. This was an era when the Protestant church and the Catholic church were at odds because the Protestant church was still in the process of forming and breaking away. And they were considered heretics and been punished as heretics by the Catholic Church. The Reformation, led by Calvin and Luther, were great truths of this Reformation. So the liberation of the human spirit was closely attended to liberation of the human existence. They were, in a sense, inseparable. Now, Calvinism encompasses a worldview and a view of human nature. The worldview, well, let me put it this way: a person's worldview and their views of human nature determines their choices and preferences for effective government. Remember, I quoted Jackie Chan earlier that not everybody is fit for a democracy. Well, that's his worldview, and that people don't have the education, the beliefs, the discipline, the respect for individual life and property, and that as such, a dictatorship is probably a better way to rule those people.
Can I interject here for a minute? I know I had a therapist that said, Lord, I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible, but you can't know what you don't know. If you've never experienced it,
Yeah.
you have no a thought or a relation to it. You can't see it. You haven't experienced it. It's a new thing. It's kind of like when you're a kid, like you grew up in your family and you've never been around anybody else in their family. And, you're a teenager, let's say, or an 8-year-old, and you go to another family and you're like, this isn't what I'm used to. This is different, because you can only do what you know how to do.
Oh. And that's why, Calvinists and Reformationists were so keen on quality education for everybody, regardless of class or rank or social status. Everybody should be able to know how to read and be proficient actually in several languages. At the time, mostly it was either Latin, Greek, or Aramaic, because everyone should be able to read and interpret the Bible for themselves. They saw it literally as their religious duty before God to educate their kids to be literate, well-educated, responsible people. So this was, some of the background. Now, if you look at the specific delegates of the convention, and a scholar by the name of M.E. Bradford out of the University of Dallas actually studied and researched the background and faiths of each member. He reported that there were 28 Episcopals, 8 Presbyterians, 7 Congregationalists, 2 Lutherans, 2 Dutch Reformed, 2 Methodists, 2 Roman Catholic, and 3 Deists, 1 unknown. Now, the 3 Deists were, everyone was raised in a staunch Calvinist home. All 3 studied for the ministry. And Bradford actually lists question marks after 2 of them, Williamson and Franklin being the 2. Now, Hugh Williamson was licensed to preach actually by the Presbyterian Church. Franklin was, as I mentioned, a staunch deist as a young man. In his older age, he kind of became disenchanted with it. It was Franklin who called for prayer, stating God governs the affairs of men. And while it's likely or uncertain that either man ever became completely orthodox, we can put him in a uncertain category, along with Jefferson.
But I think Catherine's got a point here. This is where the separation of church and state begins. It's the individual faith, not the faith of the government of the church, that motivates and governs a human. And that was the point. It's you can do what you want to as far as faith on your own, but the government should not have any say in that. That is up to you.
Well, let's take a look at that quote, the separation of church and state. It actually comes from a letter Jefferson wrote to the Dansbury Baptist.
Okay.
And here is the actual letter. You can get it. This is a Library of Congress. You can Google it straightforward. Let me see if I can blow it up a little bit.
Yeah, you need to. Thank you.
So he had been asked to address the Baptist, and he says, I'm going to start here. Believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, that he owes account to none other for his faith or worship, that the legitimate powers of government reach actions only and not opinions. I contemplate with sovereign reverence that the act of the whole American people, which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. Adhering to this expression, the supreme will of the nation, I shall see with sincere satisfaction the progress of those sentiments which tend to restore to man all his natural rights. Now, if you look at this, Jefferson is talking about an individual's rights, an individual's right to his own conscience, to his own understanding and beliefs in God. The Constitution, the Second Amendment particularly, guarantees that. He is not in this letter barring government from any activity or participation of a religious nature. And that's the interesting thing. The metaphor, separation of church and state, is often cited, and I believe often misinterpreted. It is cited so often that many think it's actually a part of the First Amendment, the amendment itself. But Jefferson quote was likely following up on a previous Baptist meeting that Jefferson was referencing, where the speaker at the time mentioned a wall of separation between the garden of the church and the wilderness of the world. God hath broke down that wall itself. Jefferson just simply adapted the clause to the government, to the state, probably the federal government. As in his second inaugural address, he said that religious exercise was left under the direction of the church or state authorities. What most people don't know is several states, individual states, had state religions. That was not barred or banned by the Constitution. The founders never intended it to be. Jefferson was not opposed to that, which is telling, particularly if you look at the modern interpretation of the statement, separation of church and state. Jefferson repeatedly was concerned about government dictating an individual's conscience, but he was not concerned with government support or even participation in it by individual representatives. For example, and I will give you several. There were often times when the federal government paid for churches to be built and priests to be paid by the U.S. government. Washington concluded a treaty with the Oneida, Tuscarora, and Stockbridge Indians, whereby the U.S. paid for the building of a church at Oneida. This 3 years after the First Amendment had been adopted. Jefferson himself, after he wrote the Dansbury letter, while president, entered into a treaty with the Kataska Indians, paying for the building of a church and a priest. The treaty was ratified by Congress and was refunded. They extended the payments, several years later. Again, passed by the Congress. James Monroe, as president, granted U.S. lands, U.S. owned lands to Indians because of their attachment to the Catholic Church. The lands were granted for a rectory of the Catholic Church.
And then they forced the Indians to be Catholics, which is a whole nother issue in and of
Whole
itself.
nother
but
story. Let's stick
yeah,
on one issue at a time.
sorry. I got
John
the
Quincy.
dogs are hang on. The dogs are scratching at my door, so I'm
Okay.
gonna make sure they're okay. Maybe take them out. I shall
Okay.
return.
No
Right back.
problem. John Quincy Adams, in a treaty with the Osage, proclaimed that the U.S. government would provide a missionary establishment on ceded U.S. land to teach, civilize, and improve the Indians. Andrew Jackson concluded a treaty which obligated the U.S. to pay for the building of a church for the Kickapoo Indians. Van Buren funded a church and a parsonage house. The list just goes on. So the founding fathers and early presidents were, they either were obsessed with trashing the Constitution that they had risked everything for and fought for, or could it be that they simply had a different understanding than today's modern interpretation? I would conclude that none violated the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, which is a list of protections for individuals, of restrictions on the government from infringing on individual rights, does not restrict any or all government support or participation of its members in religious activity. Madison, in a comment to Monroe, wrote, "Religion, morality, and knowledge, being necessary to good government and the happiness of mankind, schools and the means of education shall forever be encouraged." So, long story short, separation of church and state is simply a prohibition on the government from dictating someone's conscience or beliefs or what's allowed. That's why churches are not taxed, because the power to tax is seen as the power to destroy. Now, if a church enters into a for-profit activity, then that can be taxed and is taxed. But church activities normally would be non-taxable events because of the First Amendment. So I hope that makes some sense, gives some context to the term separation of church and state. Now, you may prefer that governments have no encouragement or participation in religious activities. I would not necessarily object to that. However, I would never object to a government official practicing their faith in any shape, manner, or form. Whatever that faith is, I would defend most any individual's right to practice and observe their faith, as long as it does not impede on somebody else's rights.
So what you're saying is, if you're a jury and you want to pray before you go into the courtroom, then you're free to do so.
Any member who wants to is free to do so. They're free to do it collectively. If somebody does not want to participate, they should be free and not censored, judged, or restricted from doing something separate. So, anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, I'm sitting here thinking I missed some of the comments. Catherine, do you think Ayn Rand is better or worse than Miss Becky? I would scoop at them on the same level, put them on the same level. That is a book I will not read at Ellen, not Sarah Lee. Miss Becky gets my downvote. What was shared in the filings was horrendous. Not sure who Miss Becky is. I've missed that, but I can talk about Rand. Casey Cat Queen. I have got to read those treaties. If you want these specific treaties, then email me. I will send them or the actual title to you.
It would be cool. You know who Miss Becky is? Becky Hill, the
Oh, yes. I just didn't recognize Miss Becky. Yes.
Now I'm walking
The
dogs
book.
out. I keep having to go
Okay.
back and forth.
Catherine, I would also argue if you don't want to pray as a juror, you shouldn't have to. Absolutely. And I hope I made that, somewhat clear at the end. Anybody who does not want to participate or who wants to pray to a different God should be equally as able, free, and unencumbered as anybody else. We, I tell my students, I'm in academia, and there's a lot of sensitivity over speech, hate speech, or whatever. And I simply point out to them that only hate speech needs protection, because nobody is going to try to prosecute someone for speech they agree with or like. It's speech that people don't like that needs protecting. And if we're not willing to protect or defend somebody else's right to engage in speech that we don't agree with or don't necessarily like, we shouldn't complain when our rights are then violated to exercise, that same free speech right. Now, obviously, all rights have responsibilities. I don't have the right to threaten someone or to, get in their face or shout them down and not allow them to speak. Rights, every right has an attendant responsibility. I can't yell fire in a theater and endanger other people's lives by creating a panic, that kind of thing. So, all rights have responsibilities. Nothing about Becky's book interests me. Catherine is hanging in there with Rand. I am absolutely uninterested in Rand today. KP, in fact, if I were to read Becky's book, I'm certain I would wish to simultaneously unknow everything that I just read. Y'all are a great group. You really are. I may talk a lot, but y'all keep me entertained. And I appreciate that. I see a lot going on for Ellen's not on now, so I'll pronounce it correctly, Murdaugh. But Melissa, excerpts of her book were terrible. We kind of thought that maybe some of y'all hadn't kept up with the trial, so we thought about giving a quick review, but hell, it looks like y'all have already read her damn book, which I won't be doing, have not done, will not be doing. But Murdaugh, how interesting is that? Just in case some of you may not know, Murdaugh was a murder trial that received tons of exposure on the LawTube channels. And a prominent politically connected attorney in southeastern South Carolina was convicted of murdering his wife and son. And there's a lot of controversy over whether or not he was guilty. Well, this week, his attorney presented a motion for retrial because of what they labeled and described as, I would say, jury tampering by the court clerk, who tried to, put it mildly, influence the jury in arriving at a guilty verdict. I mean, as you read through the motion and the affidavit, it's pretty damn epic. The clerk was constantly in their ear, telling them that, they should ignore the defense's testimony and evidence. They were all lying. When they visited the site where the murder occurred, a property by the name of called Moselle, she would be talking with the foreman in private, and in her words, and in her book, I believe she described it as saying, we could all hear and see Alec's story was impossible.
Sorry, I'm gonna join you.
Okay. You need any help? You got the chair?
No, I got it. I'll just move over a little bit. Hey, y'all.
She's back. The talent is back.
I think Miss Becky is a total shit show. Are you sharing the actual stuff or no?
No.
Why not?
Well, I can.
I highlighted it all for you.
Give me a second.
That's what I do. I don't know which one it is. There you go. You don't trust me.
All right, let me throw this up. This is the actual motion.
Which they're pretty much just saying they want a new trial, and they give all the information as to why, which is in the, of course, I know y'all have seen it, the in the exhibits.
All right, here's where, some of it starts to get interesting, because they actually took affidavits from several of the jurors. And the jurors' stories are, the jurors' comments are really pretty much epic. For example,
Or the jurors.
Yeah, the clerk of the court, Rebecca Hill, told the jury not to be fooled by the evidence presented by Mr. Murdaugh's attorneys, which I understood to mean that Mr. Murdaugh would lie when he testified. That's kind of an interesting position to me for a clerk of the court to take. She also instructed the jury to watch him closely immediately before he testified, including look at his actions, look at his movements, which I understood to mean he was guilty. The foreperson, I didn't know they had two different foreperson, but
Newman changed it. Like they had picked their own.
Yeah.
And then he picked one for them.
Interesting. But the foreman got on another foreperson, the previous one, for handling Murdaugh a box of tissues when he was crying. She told the jury, we cannot interact with Murdaugh because that's what the defense wants us to do. Like handing a box of tissues to a crying man as he was describing the murder of his son was supporting the defense.
Can you take me off?
No.
Sorry. My room.
Oh, you?
Mm-hmm.
You as in you? You as in empty room?
Yep.
Is that better?
Yep. There you go.
Look at me, all technologically savvy and smooth and everything here. So this just goes on. And when they began deliberations, the clerk told them that this shouldn't take long. She refused to give them smoke breaks.
You got 6 smokers on there, and I talked to one of our channel members, and we were on the phone. It was like, I'm a smoker. It's like, dude, if you tell me I can't smoke and then I have to stay somewhere in a hotel room, where I have not packed to do so and I can't have a cigarette, let me tell you. Okay, fine. Guilty. Go for it.
Yeah, Crazy Cat Queen keeping me honest here, telling me I have to say allegedly.
Allegedly.
So allegedly for everything I say. Anything I say that does not include the word allegedly is actually including the word allegedly, whether or not I say it. How's that? What else?
Crazy Cat Queen, you can I can send you this document if you want me to.
Yeah, anytime y'all have any questions or want some of what we're referring to, some background documents on what we're referring to or talk about, just let us know. Shoot us an email, moffatonmoney@gmail.com,
And I will send you everything I got.
or DM me on Twitter,
Mhm.
Moffat on Money. And if you're not following on Twitter, hit that follow button. Let's see. I mean, some of this to me just reads like a little Peyton place. You couldn't make this kind of crap up. Now, I'm not an attorney. I've spent a lot of time involved in securities cases and doing some expert witness. So, I've had my share of trials and procedures.
This one kills me.
But this kind of influencing it to me is just obvious tampering in trying to shade the jury to come to an opinion that the clerk, Miss Becky, wanted. Several times during the trial, Miss Hill told the jurors that the media would want to interview jurors at the end of the trial.
Of course.
During one of these conversations, she passed out business cards from the media. It's like, these are the people you want to talk to, not the others. At the end of the trial, Miss Hill told
that juror,
one juror, that no one from the media wanted to interview her.
Bull hockey.
That's pretty epic to me. Right before the defense put up their case, Ms. Hill told jurors, y'all are going to hear things that will throw you off. Don't let this distract or mislead you. In other words, ignore the evidence that favors the defense. What the hell, people? I look at this and like I say, I'm not an attorney, but I find this extremely offensive. It boggles my mind. This lady, I saw something earlier. Where was it? Here you go. Crazy Cat Queen at Catherine Frazier. Wonder how much of a busybody she's going to be in prison.
She's such a busybody.
She
is into all of she is like the biggest Karen. And then decided, and she met the co-author, met her, or excuse me, his wife one time during the trial and decided that was a thing.
Yeah, this is just offensive to me.
Okay, so no one was allowed to speak to each other during their visit to Moselle. So during the visit to Moselle, juror 826, which was the foreman, I believe, walked in the scene together. Then the juror 826 began walking with the clerk of court, Becky Hill.
Yeah, how the hell does that work when the jurors aren't supposed to talk to anybody, but the clerk is pulling them over to the side and having just running conversations with them?
No, just walking
about the case,
not conversing.
Well, in her book, she talks about how they had a unanimity of opinion on the guilt of Alec.
Because I'm just saying, if half of 1/4 of what is said here in these affidavits is true, she is guilty as sin, and they will do a whole new trial.
You know what we may need to do? Apparently, Crazy Cat is going to do a deep dive in this. Mm-hmm. So maybe we need to have Crazy Cat Queen on one night.
Love to.
And let her give us the deep dive. Because she had to, and I'm sorry you had to drop your classes. sorry about your dad's surgery. Hope he's recovering in good order.
I don't know if you watched this past Tuesday on replay, but we actually did pray for you and your dad. Um, and we really hope that he is going to get better super soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, Becky Hill's going to get her ass handed to her in prison. There's no doubt. Or her, well, I'm not going to go there. That would be rude.
All right, KP, what would be fun, having Crazy Cat Queen
Queen
on, or
Heck yeah.
Becky Hill getting her ass handed to her in prison? I'm thinking both.
Well,
well, we did miss you and found out that there was an issue with your father. And so somebody asked if we could pray. So we did. And, like I say, this has really kind of become a little family. And we just, we love you guys, care about you guys. And, if y'all have problems or something, we want to do what we can, even if it's only, send good thoughts, karma, or prayer your way. Yes, Cat Queen is a special guest. Cat Queen, I think you've been volunteered.
Crazy Cat Queen. Yes. I thought that's a solution because I really liked Miss Becky. I did too, Melissa. Like, she seemed like she was just on it, and it's just horrifying to hear. I mean, there's excerpts of her book in this. There is the conversation between the judge, the juror, as he would say. Yeah, it's bad. Crazy Cat Queen.
The cheers are going up, Crazy. I think you're committed. Can you do your deep dive by next Saturday?
He's recovering slowly.
Crazy Cat Queen. He's recovering slowly. The level of pain is surprising him. He's also agreed that he and mom need to go to assisted living with memory care for mom.
Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. That's a hard transition. And
that's oftentimes hard to admit.
And I bless you, bless your family. We will pray for your dad and mom tonight.
Oh.
For sure. I'm sorry.
Catherine, I think the court was astonishingly casual and friendly to us, but it turns out it was sloppy and probably corrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is, and, I admit watching some of it during the time, I was like, the state's witness on the gun and the angularity of the gun.
Nick.
Yeah, whatever his name. I had some
Kinsey.
I had some real problems with his testimony and analysis, even then. And so that just kind of put a burr under my saddle for the rest of the testimony. I mean, the guy was a blazing idiot. Not going to lie. Allegedly. No, he was a blazing idiot. He was saying things that just were not accurate. He didn't even know. He was talking about the slope, the angle, the positioning of the gunfire.
This drove Clay absolutely bonkers. He was like, the man cannot even figure out slope.
Yes. Slope, which a high school geometry sophomore ought to be able to calculate. Change and rise over run. It is not computationally difficult. And using a angle meter.
He was so mad about this.
I use one all the time, sharpening knives or whatever. And it doesn't matter how you've got it turned or whether you butt it up against the wall. He was talking about like the edge needs to be up against the side of the box. No, that would give a 90-degree angle. You want to measure the slope of the string of the bullet holes. So You can't have that edge up against a vertical wall. He doesn't even know how to calculate slope, and nobody in the court challenged him on that. And it was just, there were just numerous things that basics that he couldn't get right. I don't know how the hell he was ever considered to be an expert witness, because he couldn't even pass high school.
And the problem with this, I was watching looking at Crazy Cat Queen's latest the sled.
Real quick, I'll do my best on the deep dive. Clay, I sent you an email retreated, so if you send me the Murdaugh stuff, I'll do my best.
I have all the Murdaugh documents, so I can send you anything you need and all of what you need, because they were not the easiest to find, but we figured it out. SLED has been investigating Becky Hill for the past, I guess, a little over a week now. And Poot and Griffin were like, you got to stop this, because they're the ones. Have you gotten there yet? Where they took her renters out of the...
No.
They're trying to cover up their own BS. And that is crazy to me. They should be so far out of this case and not even be allowed to go anywhere near it.
Yeah, let's, talking about, some of the shenanigans that were going on. You had the clerk or somebody in the clerk's office say that they saw a post on Facebook by one of the jurors' exes, and that
the ex she hadn't seen in 10 years.
And this ex had posted that he was talking with her, drinking with her, and she had talked about the trial and how she was going to vote, whether it was guilty or innocent, whatever. And then the next day, this guy took down the post and posted an apology. And the report was that he was saying, Satan made me do it, or Satan got a hold of me. Well, the bottom line on all that was that the dude wasn't her ex, wasn't the same name, wasn't the same picture, and he never made the post originally attributed to him. And the description of his follow-up apology post was wholly inaccurate.
And about something completely different.
And they used that to kick this juror off the jury.
Did you see why? Because whatever that is.
There we go. There's the well-known book that y'all have read and love.
Do not buy this book. Do not give this woman any more money, because that's what this is all about for her. And
Yeah, Ellen has a burner up her saddle about that. This is the apology post by Timothy Stone. Ends up, this guy's a completely different individual. The ex's name, his Facebook is Tim Stone.
Always has been.
Always has been. And
he even let the defense download his entire Facebook history.
Yes. There is no record of him posting anywhere while this trial is going on. And this apology is not even his apology. And it's from another guy, different name, different face, different picture, and talking about something completely different. How screwed up do you have to be to use that as an excuse to get a juror kicked out of the jury pool? Becky is either going to have to, one, admit to improprieties, or two, admit she lied and made up stories to write the book. It's just...
And that has to be illegal. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, how stupid.
This is Tim Stone's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember, the other character was Timothy Stone. Well, this is the actual ex, Tim Stone, and his Facebook is Tim Stone. And in his affidavit, he says, I did not post anything between the dates of the trial, did not post on this particular social media page about whoever being a juror and talking too much, and that Satan had got a hold of me and I'd been drinking at the time. So not only did he not post, it wasn't even his page.
He even put his Facebook link right there.
He also states I was never contacted by law enforcement, South Carolina Attorney's General Office, the clerk court Becky Hill, or anyone at the Colleton County Clerk of Court's office. Nobody contacted him.
And Catherine, you said, I wonder what SLED will fail to find. I think they're trying to cover up things they did do like they usually do because it's a thing.
Hold on just a second. Had to encourage the dogs to quit trying to tear down the door. They do demand a little ettention on occasion.
They do. And yes, I saw that too, Catherine, that on the ethics committee approved a whole different, they did. And I was like confused when I saw a bit. I was like, wait, that's not what they said. And I was just like, wait a minute. This is wrong on 10 different levels. So anyway. Okay, so here is the actual
this is the juror who was removed. This is her actual affidavit.
Stone's ex-wife.
Yeah. She goes into Hill's office, and Hill questions her about a post on called the Walter Burrow Word of Mouth page, community page. She said her ex-husband, Tim Stone, made this post, and I made comments to him about the guilt or innocence of Murdaugh. Well, she asked me, this is key, she asked me whether I was inclined to vote guilty or not guilty. Absolutely none of her business. None whatsoever. Not a question you should ever be asked as a juror.
Good night, Carson.
Good night, Carson. Appreciate you joining us. Go snug your 4-year-old to sleep, and appreciate you being here. Well, the juror asked if she'd been drinking with her ex-husband. She said no, did not go drinking. In fact, had not seen him in 10 years. So I asked to see the post, and Miss Hill would not show it to her. She says, the juror states, I have never seen it, and to my knowledge, no one has. It's kind of hilarious.
Right.
Kind of sad, tragic, hilarious.
Okay.
And then Hill told her that SLED went to her ex-husband's house, and he confirmed he had made the post. Well, remember, in an affidavit, the husband swears nobody from SLED, sheriff, county clerk, whatever, nobody came to his house. Nobody had asked him any question about this. The county clerk also told the juror she would reinstate a restraining order that
Sounds
this
like
juror
robbery to me.
This juror had against her ex. Clerks don't revoke, clerks don't reinstate, clerks don't issue restraining orders. Those are all the purview of a judge. You know,
she is
what's
a court secretary?
Yeah, what's the charge when somebody misrepresents themselves as a judge? I don't know, but
Elected official at that.
Yeah. So, you know, she goes on about, and like I say, this is just so Peyton Place. And if y'all don't know, Peyton Place was the first soap opera back in the 50s or 60s, whatever. And so something being Peyton Place, it just means it is so soap opera-ish. You can't, you know, truth is always stranger than fiction.
It's sleazy.
It's contemptible.
Mm-hmm.
You just couldn't make this kind of stuff up if you tried. If you were a novelist and you had this imagination and were writing fiction, nobody would be interested. Nobody would buy the book because they're like, no, this is too ridiculous. You know, it's like the CGI graphics on early movies in the 90s. You look at it and go, that's just fakey as hell. They were trying too hard to save money.
Oops, sorry.
Sounds like she didn't need a restraining anymore anyhow. Dude
Yeah.
stayed away for 10 years. Sounds like he moved on.
No kidding.
Practical reality.
But he sent he had a phone call to her.
And I will say this, like Ellen just mentioned, he did apparently at the end of the trial make a phone call to her.
But did he?
And she said she was scared her. So there's apparently some history there where she seriously doesn't want to be in his sphere of influence
So
or
do you
around
think
him.
she was hanging out drinking with him?
Yeah, no. It's just
I
insane.
think we're back here. Yeah. 2 weeks later, did answer a call from ex-husband. Oh no, we were before that. When she had just received a call. Boop boop. Up. Oh, this is the worst.
Yeah, you think things are good so far. Give us another minute here. The juror who was kicked off describes tenants that she had in a rental house. And she says, during this time, she delivered a refrigerator. It was probably on the weekend or whatever. On Saturday, she delivered a refrigerator. So no jury duty that day. She said she was removed from the jury on the day of the verdict because a co-worker purportedly of Miss Webb, somebody else in the county clerk's office.
No, Deborah Webb and Clifford Dandridge were
yes. Webb was the tenant. My bad. So somebody said that the juror expressed an opinion on Murdaugh's guilt or innocence while delivering the refrigerator. Well, she denied making the statement, first of all, and then when confronting Miss Webb and the renter, both vehemently stated to me and my husband that the affidavits the prosecution drafted for their signature were not what they said to them. This is fascinating. Now, the history is that SLED showed up there at their home at 10 p.m. after they'd gone to bed.
Can I pause real quick for a second?
Sure.
Okay. Both vehemently stated to me and my husband, she is remarried. Would you go hang out with your ex-husband drinking?
No.
Go ahead. Sorry. That was just a little piece I picked up that.
Well, these renters are at home, 10 p.m., they're in bed. I don't know what age they were or what they had been doing during the day, but they stated they were in bed, 10 p.m. SLED shows up, banging on the door, pulls them out of their house, puts them in separate cars, and questions them. Well, Dandridge said he told them, I did not say any, Miss Webb, the juror reporting what one of the renters said, I did not say anything about Murdaugh's guilt or innocence. SLED returned 30 minutes later, again woke them from their beds and served subpoenas for them to appear in court the next day. Okay, that's kind of sketchy in and of itself. But these renters arrived at the courthouse the next day, were held for 9 hours until 6 p.m., when SLED presented them two affidavits, which they stated were their statements from the previous night.
That were recorded on a dash cam.
And so they signed the affidavits without reading them. This is their word. Their words. They signed the affidavits without reading them.
This is under oath. They can go to jail or someone can for the affidavits, whatever.
So, you've got allegations. Did I get that right? Crazy cat. You've got allegations that a SLED officer lied under oath.
That's what I think they're trying to cover up. That was this thing that you're just showing right now.
You've got an expert witness for the state who's an absolute moron, doesn't know basic algebra or how to use a angle meter. And you've got false affidavits being filed. That's
or statements that
statements,
were signed, yeah.
So amazing coincidences here, and none of them look good for the state or the prosecution.
Yes, Sled has accomplished investigators, no doubt.
Becky's going to have to answer to someone about that poor lady's trauma after her ex contacted her again. Because without Becky, her life would have been safe.
No kidding.
That's
a
a
good
point.
point.
Yeah.
It's a very good point. And Crazy Cat Queen, I have so many of the documents. I will send you all of these, or I'll have Clay send them to you. And any of the other ones that you want, just let Clay know which ones you want.
As Ian says, do not talk to police without a lawyer. For those of you not familiar, Ian is one of the.
They all know Ian.
I was just thinking if somebody stumbled across the
Runkle the
channel.
Bailey.
Yeah. Ian is a noted LawTube lawyer. His channel is Runkle of the Bailey. And so Ian. he has commented often on this, and to greater extent than what we covered.
She said, Melissa said total cluster.
Yeah.
F. Clusterfuck. We're after 2 hours. I can say whatever I want to now. It is a major clusterfuck. And the problem is now is that like even Rutherford, who is a senator in South Carolina, is now representing Russell Laffitte. And now his case might not get heard. He's out on bail. Might not get heard until next summer. So he's got some lovely time to hang out. Corey Fleming, they threw the book at him. He's going to jail for 30 years, I think. But the interesting part of this is that if Alec gets his prison sentence from the federal courts before state, he will go to federal prison, which is a much cushier spot
than the state.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I just don't see. My expert legal opinion is I don't see any way he doesn't get a new trial, and they should release him on bond until the new trial. And this time I hope he gets attorneys who are at least a little bit more familiar with algebra.
Attorneys or witnesses?
Attorneys and witnesses.
Well, the state, that was their attorney.
Yeah, but they did not
Kenny Kinsey.
Catch it.
Kenny Kinsey.
Kenny Kinsey, yeah. Mullet.
He pissed Clay off to no end. It was hilarious.
If you hold yourself out as an expert witness and you're testifying in a murder trial in which somebody can be sentenced for their entire life, you need to be damn good at what you do. And you need to be damn correct in what you say. I'm sorry. If you're not either one of those things and it results in a false conviction, you ought to be doing the time that they did.
I always say, if you're going to say something, if you're going to back somebody up, someone you better be damn certain, because it's your name behind them and your name on whatever you say.
Huh. Crazy Cat Queen, nope, they won't release him. If he gets a retrial, then the previous verdict is thrown out. He's no longer a guilty man. I don't see how they can hold him, though.
The feds can.
They can't hold him if he's not convicted. They can arrest him and detain him, but he still gets a bail hearing for release.
Does he?
Yeah. Should he be charged and have a bail hearing within?
Didn't you go to law school?
Is it 48 hours? Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
But I did not sit for the bar, didn't graduate, whatever. Just did it because I was bored.
Who takes law classes because they're bored? Anyone? And
it was 30 years ago, so not going to lie, forgot a bunch.
Bye, KP. Night.
Good night, KP. Thank you for being here. Appreciate your spirit and your comments.
I know, Crazy Cat Queen. You are like The craziest studier. I think you should be a professional student. I think that's your job.
That's part of the joy of being a professor is you still get to study all the time, but you get to study what you want. You don't have to worry about taking tests.
I agree. I think, in my opinion, and this is not popular, I know that, is that the state did not prove, in my opinion, that he did it. I'm not saying he did or didn't. But I don't feel like it was proven beyond, Lord, Peter got mad at me about this the other day, a reasonable doubt. I said shadow of a doubt. And he was like, you don't say shadow of a doubt. It's reasonable doubt. I'm like, okay, Peter. I'm just like typing out right now. Sorry.
Yeah, there were some times during the trial, and even reading all of this about Becky, it seems like Murdaugh had been very politically powerful, even corrupt, and people saw this as a chance to finally give him his comeuppance, which I'm not going to argue that he didn't deserve or whatever. But I think still during a trial, it's just the evidence admitted to the trial that's all you consider. And like I say, I've got some significant issues with some of the quote unquote expert evidence submitted. There's obviously some huge gaps. They don't have the guns.
I gotta say something real quick. I know y'all love some law tube, but get addicted to some finance tube. I'm just saying.
I'll give them credit. They're pretty faithful.
They are very faithful. I love our family here. It's awesome.
Yeah. Y'all are pretty faithful. And the law can be entertaining. A lot of times it's boring as hell and routine. But when you get big personalities in a dramatic case, the Depp Heard, the Murdaugh, that can be pretty damn entertaining. That's hard to compete with sometimes. Not gonna lie.
We are in southern North Carolina.
Yes.
I could go to the trial if there is another one.
Oh, yeah. That might be interesting for the fun of it if you can get admitted. I don't know what the seating is or how they pick the seating. You gotta be
there early as. Oh, Law Tube is how we found Money Tube. Murdaugh was already in custody without bail. True.
Yeah, that's and that's something
that's true.
We are grateful to
this one.
Oh. Murdaugh was already in custody without bail, so he remains in custody because there's a mistrial and not an acquittal. He shouldn't be released.
That's true.
I did not remember he was in custody, but he was, wasn't he? Because they brought him,
Law Tube's how we found Money Tube. Money Tube. I like that. That's cute. Oh, yeah. You're not that far away. We can do that.
That would be pretty damn epic. Not gonna lie.
We can meet up there. It's probably I'm guessing, because they're gonna do a change of venue. I'm guessing maybe Columbia is where they're gonna go. That would make the most sense, in my opinion.
Yeah, or get it out of state. So move it to someplace like Charlotte or Atlanta, where you don't have all the political connections.
That would be easy peasy.
Yeah, that would be gold.
Oh, we could do that. Absolutely. I'll get your email from Clay. That would be fun.
So, I was going to say to give credit where credit is due. Law Tube is how we found Money Tube. Many of y'all did come over. Rob gave us a
many very good
comments. So we do. We're not bashful about being grateful for that. He helped us accelerate our timeline. So for that, we're thankful. And some really great people came over, such as
All of you.
all of you.
Oh, Columbia, your Aunt Debbie. Sweet. Yeah, different state, I would think would be either Charlotte, like you said, or I don't know if they want to do a big city though. I mean, Charlotte's all financial. That would be tough.
Well, let me back that up. I was thinking of for the federal trial, but for the state trial, they would move it to, Columbia, Charleston, Greenville. I think the state will have to keep it somewhere within the state.
Probably. I'm
So-
just thinking that like he had property in a lot of counties, of course, Colleton, Columbia, of course, that's where his son Buster lives.
Yeah, and he was so politically connected, apparently, with some of the powers
It's
that
gonna
be
be
in
tough.
Columbia. You hopefully would find an area and a jury pool that would not be familiar with him. There's been so much publicity about this, and particularly in the state of South Carolina, that I'm not sure what they would do. Crazy Cat Queen, I hope it's not a big city because that's a lot of competition for seats.
Crazy Cat Queen, I know some people in South Carolina. Don't worry about that. We can make that happen. Huh. I'm wondering, where would they do it?
Don't know. Don't know where they would do it. Not sure how they select it.
Yeah, and they can't do it in Colleton County. There's no way.
With the same judge and
No. And he's about to retire.
yeah.
And he may be a witness to the Court of Appeals. Not the appeals, but the whatever they're going to now with this new
The
motion.
retrial.
Yeah. So he would not be able to retry it, correct?
Right. Particularly if they want to question him about some of the events that they have
Yes.
described in this motion and the affidavits.
And that he's named in.
So that would be interesting, having the judge on the stand. And I'll admit, my opinion of his conduct during the trial was that he was consistently anti-Murdaugh. Murdaugh.
Spartanburg, Sparkleburger.
Yeah, Spartanburg, Greenberg area.
We used to call it Sparkleburger. There was a great burger place there. I don't know what it was called.
I used to be in the area routinely. It's pretty, particularly up in the Greenville area, the mountains up there, around in there. It's a pretty area. Hell, I might have to go.
We'll all go. We'll
just
just make it a family trip.
Yeah, I'll just be feeling my feminine side, declare myself a woman, and we'll just make a girls trip out of it.
You a mess, especially if it's in the summer. He's going to be a witness. He needs to clear his yeah. I agree. I mean, his son died like 2 or 3 weeks before the trial.
The judges?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. And it was like, I felt for him, but the jurors were just, oh, hell no.
That's kind of sexist.
You ain't a girl.
Did you just assume my gender?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It'll be Tallulah, me, Crazy Cat Queen. You're declaring yourself.
Let's clarify this. Crazy Cat Queen, I want you to know. I want you to understand that my mom was a full 100% woman.
Mm-hmm.
That means I am half woman.
Says you can come along, but don't call yourself a girl.
There you go. I can live with that.
Don't worry, he won't. He just wants to take advantage of whatever he can, as a female, because wherever we are right now in the world. It helps every now and then.
It's just funny. Yeah, to me, it's, society is so obsessed with normalizing insanity that sometimes you can either, I get to the point where I can either laugh or cry. And I just prefer to laugh. I can't change it,
Mm-mm.
but I can snicker about it. So that's kind of my relief. And I live in a world where in, insanity is oftentimes normalized.
You mean in the educational world?
Well, let's not give any
Oh, sorry.
specifics out, but
I wasn't gonna say nothing.
yeah, it's a different environment. And some of the people that I deal with, I literally have to determine their gender at the moment.
Seriously, I'm not
Un-
even. I don't ask about this because when I say like, "How's your day? What'd you do today?" and he goes up, "Blah, blah, blah, blah." Crazy Cat Queen. I have been accused of being a man, so
yeah,
I get that.
yeah. Most guys kind of like Tom girls, or as we used to call them.
Let's just say I know my way around toolbox.
Yeah,
I know how to fix shit. I know how to replace shit. I can take stuff apart, put it back together.
she's handy to have around. Did Carson ever get around to making that bid?
Oh,
Ouch.
yes, ex-boyfriend. I don't think he did. Um, but no, I think Crazy Cat Queen. I think you and I would be great friends. 'Cause, yeah, all the things. Clay, I think, can see that, which is kind of funny.
Anyway, there's a lot to look forward to in the
Mhm.
Murdaugh trial coming up. There's, we thought the first round was interesting. To me, this motion and the affidavits have just kicked it up a gear. So there's Melissa. Same. My dad taught me well.
Heck yeah, man. I mean, you gotta. I've replaced my own toilets. I have rewired my house. I have done all kinds of things. And senior center, what? I'm also ADHD. Wait,
Oh wait, yeah, that's pretty rough for him.
who are we talking about?
Who are we talking about?
For Clay to be a man?
Catherine, my stepmother lost her senior center privilege, but she now gets an assist 3 times a day during the week and twice on weekends. She gets therapy 3 times a week and her trainer.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And Crazy Cat Queen, God bless awesome daddies. I wish I had had one. I had to learn it all and by myself, just by trial and error and figuring things out. Um,
And a lot of people complain about guys who don't read instructions first.
Never.
Never read the
And I will
instructions.
never ask for directions, and I will never.
And then when there are leftover pieces and I have to go in and take everything apart and redo it.
That is not true. It works just fine like it is.
The toilet,
Huh?
replacing the water valve on the toilet.
Mike did that.
No, I did. You started
Which
it and I had to
one?
redo it upstairs.
Oh, well, there was that little
Yeah.
issue.
On occasion. On occasion.
Usually, I do quite well. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry.
Didn't know she had Alzheimer's. I am sorry about that. My mom had Lou Gehrig's, and it was difficult, to put it mildly. So I keep hoping they'll come up with a good treatment for Alzheimer's. I think they're close, but the treatment is better, but hopefully. Judge Newman having to clear his name. That was the
The what?
rough for him,
Oh, yeah.
having to clear his name.
And I have to give credit to Putin Griffin for saying, we in no way, shape, or form think that Neiman knew had any idea about any of this or was complicit in it. Um, and they said it several times in their news or their presser. And I think Nim did a good job. I don't think he understood everything going on. I think he had a lot on his mind personally. I think he had a lot on his mind with this case. Um, I mean, even okay. The
Yeah,
court.
I'm kind of with Catherine on this. I kind of felt a little biased too in some of his decisions.
Well, I did. I don't think. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody was, but oh boy, I'm not too pleased about the clerk interrogating a juror as opposed to coming to me and bringing it to me. I mean that puts the ball in her court.
Yeah, somebody said earlier that the clerk was real close to the judge, good
Mm-hmm.
relationship with the judge. And, to me, here it is coming out, because if I was a judge, I'd be highly offended or pissed off at that.
Yeah.
Clerk is grotesquely overstepping their bounds, their abilities, their competence, their authority. And that needs to be reined in no short order. But here he's like, "Oh, shocked. I'm not happy that they did that." That to me is a wholly inappropriate response as well.
I said I'm not too pleased about this happening.
Yeah.
Um, no, he didn't. He didn't like Alec at all. I think he made some decisions that I thought were prejudicial, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think that whole courthouse was pretty much prejudiced against Alex. Again, this guy had a lot of political power, a lot of influence, and he probably was a pompous asshole. And, I think some people just
But do you believe
could not overcome that.
Spend all that money on drugs?
I have no idea where the money went.
I don't think it went to drugs.
I
don't know where it is.
I don't think he spent anywhere near what he says he did with Oxy and drugs. It just gets to be. I did the math, and it was like 2,000 pills a day. I forget. It was some stupid number.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, like I said before, I don't think it was proven. I don't think they proved a thing.
Yeah, somebody that's consuming that many pills or somewhere in that range, that's all they're eating. And they are going to look like a crackhead.
And he was overweight.
Yeah. So I had a little trouble both with the amount of money and the volume. Unless he was, dealing, exporting it to another nation somewhere. I don't know. But there's just a whole lot of stuff that just didn't pass the sniff test. When I
That's so weird
when I was
thing to say for drugs. Sorry.
in maybe hadn't thought about that actually. But when I was, doing private placements and investments, we were, structuring Reg D offerings. We would go do due diligence on proposed investments. And sometimes, the numbers look good. The people were all flashy and seemed okay, but just something didn't smell right. It didn't pass the smell test or the sniff test.
You can't.
So I would not. It's just an intuition or a sense. So if I didn't feel comfortable with that, even though everything else, I couldn't point to anything specific, I wouldn't invest money in it. I wouldn't invest my clients' money in it. So same thing with this trial and the drugs, the expenses on drugs, it just doesn't seem to make sense. I can't prove it. It just doesn't, I've been around people who have been heavy drug users, both with, Oxy and Coke and other stuff, and it just doesn't fit.
If he spent that much money on drugs, he would be dead. Unless he was reselling it, and then he would have more money. So none of it makes sense. I agree with you, Melissa. There's no way.
Yeah, he would be turning on to something more powerful if he was that addicted to oxy and not getting a high and have to, buy or consume insane amounts of oxy. He would probably switch to something more potent. Catherine, I think he was extremely offended that Murdaugh, as a lawyer, took the money of so many people, but I think a lot of the rulings might have been because of how objections were made. That's fair.
Fair.
I think they should have, Catherine. Think they should have investigated the money, but kept it separate from the murder trial. Something else is going on. There's way too much money unaccounted for. And to me, that's a fascinating aspect in question because there is tons of money that was flowing around that county for some reason, and nobody gives a damn.
But that's all they had on him.
Yeah, but nobody investigated it. Nobody has pursued it. Nobody gives a damn. Nobody wants to investigate it. Yeah.
Oh, that's why he's got like 91 charges in the federal court.
I was talking about the state. Nobody in the state has done anything.
They still have, because they've gone after Lafitte. They've gone after help me out, y'all. Corey Fleming. And there's another guy. But they are really, I mean, they've gone after them. They are going to.
Are those on the money that
the money
Murdaugh spent? Yeah. Okay, well, I stand corrected.
Well, the Murdaugh, where everything happened. All of the conservatorships and the Satterfields, where Eric Bland, he keeps interjecting himself into everything, and that has me curious why he just can't stop with the Murdaugh stuff. He just will not let it go. But yeah, I think the murder should have been separate from the Clay. I have a tag on my dress. Apparently, can you pull that off?
Not right now.
Sorry, I was itching. Sorry.
Crazy Cat Queen, but I'm looking forward to seeing the retrial with a different judge. If I was Newman, I'd recuse myself because of Becky's crap.
I would too. I think that is a conflict of interest in the highest regard.
Yeah, I don't, who knows, but I just have a hard time imagining him sitting on the retrial.
You know, you don't have to wear these when I'm here.
Crazy Cat Queen. Whoops. They're afraid of what they might find. The money's probably been spread around, like his other family members and likely others.
There's no doubt.
Yeah, there's, you can't track cash. But he wasn't using cash. He was running it through bank accounts. It shouldn't be that hard to track to individuals or other accounts. It just shouldn't. It's just not that difficult.
Looking forward to the retrial of a different judge. Yeah. We saw that. Okay, sorry. Yeah. All right, y'all. It's 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it's probably about that time.
It's Ellen's bedtime. Paying off jurors, paying off officials, drug dealing, lavish lifestyle, offshore accounts. Yeah, he ended up giving his house on the beach to the Satterfields, which no one ever talks about, which is weird. But I think we're gonna see Eric Bland is tied up in this a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Just keep that in the back of your minds.
It's definitely going to be a high tide season for the Law Tube, folks.
Yeah, and Cousin Eddie, his trial is going on now. So,
who's Cousin Eddie?
Oh, honey. I'll explain that later.
Can y'all tell who watches all the Law Tube channels and who doesn't?
Yeah, not me.
I make my living some way, but y'all, it was really good to see you. Enjoyed tonight. Good conversation, and I hope you got something of value out of it. Look forward to seeing y'all maybe Tuesday, or if not, next Saturday. To those on the replay crew, appreciate you guys just as much, just as well.
We love you guys.
Love Seriously. You guys.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting us. We really do appreciate it. And you have our love and support, and we're always here for you. Like I said, Moffat on money. Yeah, he is obsessed with. I'm sorry, ADHD. You can email us anytime at moffatonmoney@gmail.com. We have Clay's got Twitter at Moffat on Money, and reach out to us anytime. Seriously, like we're always here for any of you.
Yeah. Good night to you all. Blessings to you. Our time is up. We thank you for yours. Good night.
Sweet dreams.